Welcome back to the Fantasy Brothers podcast. We've got me, Josh Johnson. Allegedly. Joined by my good buddy Ben Watts. Allegedly.
Who knows if we're friends? The friendship is the alleged part.
Wouldn't that be great if we did this whole thing?
We have to say that. And just hate
and
each other?
And we hated each other's guts and nobody knew.
It'd be like the horror stories of like actors in movies who hate each other.
Yes.
Do you know, I was watching Chips the other day, like the old school Chips, not the new movie, but like the old school TV show with Eric Estrada. Do you know those two guys like hated each other in real life?
I did not know that.
They could not stand each other.
How did they do that then?
I don't know. It's like multiple seasons. Like, how do you spend years working with this person? And like, they're the main characters. They hate each other.
They're on screen all the time.
I don't know, man.
Anyways, we've got Dynasty sells on this episode. If you're checking us out in your podcast feeds, rate us, review us where you can do that. If you're watching on YouTube, hit subscribe. Leave a comment. Let us know your number one Dynasty sell, because we might miss them because we're only doing 6 of them in this episode. But we're going to dive into
shorter episode.
Yeah, a little bit shorter. We're going to dive into 6 players you should be selling in your fantasy leagues right now. So let's hop right into it. Number 1, Davante Adams. It feels probably a little bit predictable, maybe a little obvious that Davante is a sell. He is 30 years old after all, and he just lost his quarterback, Derek Carr, to the Saints. And he was replaced with a better-looking Derek Carr in Jimmy Garoppolo. So,
not better at football, though.
It's a slight downgrade. It's not a big downgrade, but just a slight one.
But for whatever reason, like, I know Jimmy has his winning success, but it's all from Kyle Shanahan. Like, I feel like when it comes to supporting real fantasy options like Davante Adams, he's going to be worse at it than Derek Carr will.
I could see that just because he doesn't throw the ball downfield as much.
Yeah.
But also, Deebo Samuel was the wide receiver too when Jimmy started. So again, there is that. He has supported success, but
Kyle Shanahan.
Shanahan was
Shanahan is
involved.
The X factor here.
Yeah. So, I don't know. Jimmy G remains to be seen how good he's going to be with Vegas.
Porn star Jimmy.
Yeah. Oh, man. I remember when that was a thing.
Dude.
When he was...
Jimmy was at a crossroads here. He had a path, a decision to make. He could pick winning football, or he could go to strippers and porn stars. And obviously he ended up in Vegas, so we know where he went.
You're telling me he just didn't want to go play with Davante Adams?
I'm sure.
I think Adams is probably going to be fine this year. I still think he's probably going to be roughly a top 5 receiver for fantasy, but he is 30. It is Jimmy Garoppolo. The writing's on the wall here. What you can do, though, with him is you can sell him to a contender and say, you know what? His production's still going to be there. He's probably still going to score a lot of fantasy points for at least another year, maybe 2 more years. Jimmy's not the end of the world, but he's definitely not the savior either.
You find a contender, give me 2 late firsts for Davante, you can have him.
Good Lord, if you could get that, I'd be okay with 1
late
mid-first.
It's late first, so you got to keep that in consideration. But
if I got the 105, sold.
In this year's draft.
Yeah, in this year's draft. Gone. We'll see ya. Because that's probably Jackson Smith and Jigba. So
if I can flip Adams for Njigba right now, I'm doing it.
I'm doing it.
Obviously, if I'm not contending, it's a different story, but yeah.
So yeah, Adams, he's my number 1 dynasty sell. Ben, hit us with your number 1 dynasty sell.
My number 1 dynasty sell, highlighting one guy, but I'll mention like a couple others here at the end, and it sort of feels kind of obvious too. It's Tyler Algier. And this one hurts me a little bit because as a Falcons fan, I really do like Tyler Algier, and an owner of Algier last year when he finished really, really strong. I like him, and I like him a lot, and I do think he is a really good player. He fits Arthur Smith's system very well. He's a big running back, downhill runner, strong, powerful. I like it. Had a great rookie season, over 1,000 yards. Only scored 3 touchdowns, so that is a problem. He had 17 targets, caught 16 passes. So receiving work not there. However, there's a big asterisk by that because Kyle Pitts had like a 50% target share with 30 targets on the season. So there is that.
I wonder if the Falcons are going to decide to run the ball a little bit this coming year, or pass the ball. Sorry, if they're going to pass the ball.
Gosh, I hope so. When we do a buy list, Kyle Pitts better be on that list. But yeah, and then there's the problem of he's a 5th-round pick. We have seen time and time again, 5th-round picks, undrafted guys come in, have phenomenal seasons, a la James Robinson. I mean, he's great. Awesome player. We've seen him perform as a top 5 real-life running back and then just gets replaced the next season because they have no financial commitment to them whatsoever. So as much as I really, really love Tyler Algier, I would be selling him, and that's your argument to sell him is you can find a guy who needs running backs. Like, look, Tyler Algier just finished his rookie season. He was great. He's in a run-first offense in Atlanta. You know, youth, production, all of this, you can spin that to sell your own. You can tier up. I don't know if you're rebuilding. Just give me some picks. I don't know. However you want to do it, but it's a good opportunity to sell him right now while he is still the starter in Atlanta before we either draft somebody, sign a free agent, something like that.
Yeah, if you could turn him into like the 203 and go get Zach Evans, Devon A-Chain, Sean Tucker, if he's there, any one of those guys, I'd be excited to do that.
Yeah.
And I think you can probably do that.
If honestly. you can probably package him up in some kind of deal and tier up to, gosh, I'm trying to think of a guy who you could do this with. Is I don't know if you have a late first or something. Does Tyler Algier and I don't know, maybe the 108, 106, 107 for Javonte Williams, does that pique your interest just because of the injury? You know, if you're trying to sell him, I don't know.
Nope.
Well, I mean, not yours, but you know, if you're trying to put a package together.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you might have to do more like a 105 or something, but yeah,
I don't know. I'm just didn't really plan this ahead, so I'm just thinking off the top of my head there.
I think you can. I think if nothing else, you can try and maybe use Algier as a throw-in to get a tier-up move done, or you could just trade him straight up for any second. And I think the draft is so loaded right now, you can get Kendre Miller at the end of the 2nd round, and I think Kendre Miller might be a better pro than Tyler Algier is right now. So yeah. I think there's a lot of players that are going to be really interesting there.
And you can consider, you know, I added these 2 names at the end, Isaiah Pacheco, Damian Pierce. Pacheco more than Pierce. Pierce is a little bit more interesting. He was a higher pick. He was a 4th-round pick, obviously still a day 3 pick, but it was a 4th-rounder. And he was the best rookie running back of these 3 guys I mentioned. But Pacheco definitely, because I think in part because he's been on the Chiefs, so people have watched him. He looks really good. He was in the Super Bowl. He scored in the Super Bowl, so obviously people have seen him, and he's the clear starter. I don't know who else is even on the Chiefs. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, they're going to cut him, trade him. I don't know what they're going to do with him. But you can sell Pacheco the same way as a starting running back in a really great offense. And yeah, just get the value while it's there to be had.
For sure. My second sell. We talked about him a couple days ago as he is trying to get a trade done. Austin Eckler. This is really weird. So the past couple of years, he has been maybe one of the biggest bargains in football if you parlay his contract into actual on-field production. I mean, he has outperformed his contract for sure. Problem is he's 27 years old, and he's a running back, which means teams are just not going to pay elite 27-year-old running backs no matter who you are. I mean, Christian McCaffrey might be the exception to the rule here, but like you're just not getting paid at that advanced age. So he is going to facilitate a trade, presumably, or it may have already happened. We're pre-recording this. But Austin Eckler has scored an ungodly number of touchdowns the past 2 seasons. I would imagine if he stays with the Chargers and hammers out a deal, or if he gets traded, he is not going to score 20 touchdowns, 18 touchdowns, whatever it is next year. The touchdown numbers have to go down. He's also gotten, and this is the Joe Lombardi effect. I truly don't really see this as replicable again in any situation at all. He had 94 and 127 targets the past 2 years as a running back. That's absurd. I think he's in any other system like an 80, 85 target a season kind of player, which is still incredible for a running back. That's still, probably tops of all running backs, but it's not so much that it outweighs the fact that he only carries the ball 200 times when he's given the workhorse load. And I think if he gets traded, let's say, for example, and this would be really funny if this has already happened, but if he gets sent to Chicago or something and they have Khalil Herbert, who is miles better than any of the backups that the Chargers had, or maybe the Bears re-sign David Montgomery to a super cheap deal, keep him there too. David Montgomery is going to steal a crap load of touches, and Austin Eckler would basically just be like a super Tariq Cohen or something. So there's a lot of ways that this could break out and be really unfortunate for fantasy football. I do think he's a great player, but he is coming up on the age cliff, and I think that there's a lot of people that still view him as the RB1 in this coming year's draft, and I think you should target those people and sell Austin Eckler for...
Take advantage of them.
Yeah, I straight up any top 7 rookie pick, 1 for 1. If you can get a first and a second, if you can get... I don't know. If you can trade Eckler and a first and get one of the younger studs like an ETN, a Javonte Williams by the injury dip. Frankly, if you can trade Eckler for J.K. Dobbins plus even, which I think you could probably get done, I would be doing that. Or if you just want to flip him for a receiver with some upside, I think you can probably get that done too. So I think Eckler's a guy that you can flip and probably get a pretty decent haul considering people have a pretty high view of him right now. But I think the market's probably going to sour on him. I don't think he's going to be the RB1 come actual draft time. So I would be trying to move on him. The real window was last year, but now you have to move. You have to move off him.
With him requesting a trade, the crunch time is now.
Yes.
You need to find somebody who has not seen that news and give him Austin Eckler.
Yeah, I had Eckler in one of my leagues this past year, and as soon as the season was over, that was priority number 1 is find a trade, get Eckler off this roster because his value is about to take a hit. And it was great because I was able to do it before, while people still had the rose scented glasses.
A month and a half ago.
Right. It was the season ended. We flipped over to the new league year. 18 hours later, Josh has done a trade where he's gotten rid of Austin Eckler, and I can't remember what I got back, but it was substantial. So
yeah.
His value's fading fast, even as we speak, because I think I got Kenneth Walker somehow involved in that. So that ship has sailed, obviously, but Eckler should be somebody who can get you something pretty nice in a dynasty league still.
Yeah, get out while you can. My number 2 is probably one of the more, I guess, polarizing guys we're going to talk about today. It's Christian Kirk. It may sound Calvin Ridley's coming back, but I mean, we just saw his ceiling, I think. This is the best season that you were going to get out of Christian Kirk. He was a standout as the wide receiver 1 for Trevor Lawrence, and he's an excellent player. 133 targets, 84 receptions, 1,100 yards, 8 touchdowns. Great year. Obviously, Calvin Ridley is going to change this, and I've seen a lot of rumors of the Jaguars adding another pass catcher to this offense. So while I see the offense itself is going to level up this year, and you want pieces in a good offense, I definitely see a world where Christian Kirk returns to kind of the same way he was used in Arizona as a slot guy, as a field stretcher, and Calvin Ridley kind of steps into the X Factor, clear 1 role. And I've seen, a lot of mocks where they take a wide receiver in the first round, where they go trade for a guy. So it's a very real possibility that Christian Kirk could find his self as the odd man out. And I know they pay him a lot of money, and I think his real life value won't really diminish that much, but his fantasy production could come down substantially.
Yeah, I could totally see that. Even if they don't go grab a guy, I mean, they just paid Evan Ingram, they brought in Calvin Ridley. I know Evan Ingram was there last year, but it's there's more mouths to feed now. Even with just adding Ridley, Ridley's going to take a lot of targets, and Zay Jones is no slouch.
Yeah.
He's going to take his share of targets.
If they don't add someone, this is less so. But even still, like this was the peak I think Christian Kirk will ever have done. Is what he did this year.
Yes. Yeah, I would for sure. I mean, he finished as a wide receiver 1. I don't see that happening ever
Zero
again.
chance that happens again.
Unless this turns into the Chargers offense where they throw it 700 times. But that's probably not going to happen either because Doug Peterson likes to run the ball. He's a passing play caller, but he's not the kind of passing play caller that's like, hey, let's throw it 800 million times. It's let's run the ball.
Completely abandon the run.
Right. They're not going to do that. They're going to throw the ball like 500, 550 times. And so, and Calvin Ridley, let's just be honest here. In case y'all forgot, he's a stud.
Last time we saw Calvin Ridley, he was a top 5 wide receiver. Granted, that was, year and a half, going to be 2 years by the time this, football season starts. But still, Calvin Ridley is one of the best route runners in the league. Just overall talented, yeah.
So when you're worried about a player that might come back, be rusty, and not have whatever that is, it's not the type of player that Calvin Ridley is, where he is a route running specialist, perhaps even the best route runner in the NFL before he got injured, had the mentals situation, and then
he was
suspended.
Up there with Devontae Adams and those guys of just the dude can get open.
Right. He has not forgotten how to run routes. Let's put it that way. He's going to come back, and he's not even. I mean, he's getting older, but what is he, like 27, 28? Yeah, that's fine. He's still got
Devontae Adams is a top 5 wide receiver. He's 30.
Yeah.
DeAndre Hopkins is still a top 10, at least real life receiver. He's 30. Stephon Diggs, 30. I mean, all these guys with juice still in the tank, and he's 2 years younger than them.
My final sell, this one is going to be the first one that is probably not obvious. A lot of you are going to think of this guy as a hold or even a buy if you can, but I think that there's an argument to be had for selling DJ Moore. So I think we all would agree he's a great player, right? We've been arguing with people in the comments for days about how good DJ Moore actually is. People don't realize he's legit. But here's the problem. When we talk about DJ Moore, when we talk about Justin Fields, the argument about past quarterbacks and past receivers comes up. You refer to the Eagles last year. With Jalen Hurts, they get A.J. Brown, level up. Josh Allen got Stephon Diggs, leveled up. But, what happens if they don't level up? And I think that's where, in this situation, there's more potential for that to happen because, A.J. Brown was probably a top 5 talent in the NFL, universally accepted when he gets traded to Philadelphia. Stephon Diggs wasn't there, but I think people thought he was probably a top 10 receiver or roughly that. And then he goes to Josh Allen and obviously blows up. DJ Moore is not quite thought of in the same way as those two guys were, even though he's produced. He's produced 3 1,100-yard seasons. The numbers say he's great. And I think it's not that difficult to make the argument that he's a really, really good player. But there's always the possibility that he goes to Chicago and perhaps they don't quite figure things out on offense the way you would think. Justin Fields maybe doesn't take the leap forward that you would hope. They've got a defensive head coach. They might just try and run the ball and play defense and not throw the ball a ton. And it just doesn't quite happen the way you would want for DJ Moore. So I think with him, you can make the argument that he's 25 years old. He just got a quarterback upgrade. And I think you can make a lot of really interesting deals with DJ Moore depending on your league. Obviously, this is a huge asterisk depending on your league kind of situation because I think for DJ Moore, you could go trade him and get the 104 in your rookie drafts, which is likely to be, Jahmyr Gibbs or Jackson Smith and Jigba, or even a quarterback in Superflex leagues. But you could also use DJ Moore and another piece to tier up and get a more stable receiver like a T. Higgins, Devonta Smith, Garrett Wilson, a player that is still really young, but that just produces at a more consistent clip than what DJ Moore has done in the past. So I do think DJ could end up being very, very good for fantasy, but on the off chance he's not, the argument is to be had where you could trade up, and this might be maybe the highest value he will ever have in some people's minds going forward. So in these situations, you always want to self-analyze and figure out if this is a sell window for a player like that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Especially, I like the AJ Brown comp where, and I think we said this last week after the trade happened, is yes, we see a young quarterback and good wide receiver get paired and they do really well. However, DJ Moore, as good as he is, and he is legit, he is a great wide receiver, I would say. He's not AJ Brown.
No.
He's not Stephon Diggs. And I don't think that, from a real life perspective, Justin Fields is not Josh Allen. I don't know. Is he Jalen Hurts? I don't know. Maybe not. Jalen Hurts just went to a Super Bowl. He might not be Jalen Hurts either. So there's more questions there.
Yeah. There's reasons to be optimistic and also to be concerned no matter which way you slice it. I think you can make an argument either way here. So this is the negative side of that coin.
Which I guess would kind of lead me into mine. So, not, I guess, intentionally, but Justin Fields is my big sell. And it was not...
Oh, no. Did we plan this?
It was not necessarily from a negative perspective. Mine was more as, I know what Justin Fields is, or was right before the DJ Moore trade. And now that changes the game. So we've seen Justin Fields without any weapons last year. And towards the end of the midseason, he was absolutely electric. He was the top quarterback for about 5 weeks in a row, scoring 40 points, 35 points, 40 points, just absolutely lighting it up. And that was with no weapons. So now you give him a a great wide receiver to throw to. And obviously, I think at worst, he's as good as he was last year. And that's worst case scenario just in my head for fantasy, at least. Yeah. So with that said, I think now you have a great opportunity to use this to your advantage, and you can either tier up to a guy like Mahomes or Josh Allen. I think that would be, if you can add not a ton to it, Fields, and if it's Superflex, a late first, or Fields and a second in one quarterback leads, and go get yourself the stable, incredible. I know exactly what Josh Allen is. I know exactly what Patrick Mahomes is. They are phenomenal. They're going to be the top two quarterbacks off the board, or should be, every single year. Yeah, go get me one of those. Or I like the idea too of, with this burst in value that Justin Fields suddenly has, now you can back down. You can tier down. We say tier down in quotations. I don't know if these guys are really tier downs, but if you can get Trevor Lawrence and something for Justin Fields now, or if I can trade Justin Fields, you had mentioned, Fields for Herbert plus. If I can trade Justin Fields and go get Justin Herbert straight up right now, I do that 10 out of 10 times. Every time I'm trading Justin Fields for Justin Herbert.
Yeah.
And that's, you could not do that 2 weeks ago, but now I think that's very well in the realm of possibility, with people wanting just an incredible playmaker and difference maker that Justin Fields will be for your fantasy team. And you don't have to do this. I'm not saying Justin Fields will be bad. I think he's going to be great. But you have an opportunity to better your team as a whole with this trade.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's maybe the best way to look at it, is like, with some of these unknowns, which Fields and I guess DJ Moore as well, there's a bit of the unknown. And trading those guys at what their perceived value is for what we do know is never it's not ever a bad idea because I think their value's elevated. So it's not like you're selling them low, you're potentially selling them high. And I think in fantasy, if you can sell those players high, maybe they go a little bit higher. Maybe you miss out on that absolute peak. Maybe Justin Fields is the QB1. But if you tiered up to Josh Allen, you gave up Justin Fields in a late first in Superflex, and you get Josh Allen's going to finish, what, QB3? And you got okay. Technically, you might have lost because you gave up the first and you dropped down 2 spots in QB rankings.
Yeah,
but Josh Allen's going to be a top 3 guy for the next 4 or 5 years, and Justin Fields may or may not be that, and that's where you're trying to do that. You're saying, I know exactly what this asset is. I'm not 100% sure what Justin Fields is. I'm not 100% sure what DJ Moore is. So going to get something that you do know may benefit you.
Yeah, and I do think that, especially this year, Justin Fields is going to be great for fantasy. Injuries aside, but that's, for any of these guys. However, I know these other guys long term. So even if they're not like Justin Fields, there's more than likely he's going to outperform Lawrence. He's going to outperform Herbert. He's going to outperform Burrow. But I can count on those guys on my dynasty roster for the next 5 years plus.
Yeah.
Justin Fields, I don't know. Is he going to get a long-term contract? I hope so for his sake. But we haven't seen it. I don't know. I know that Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow are going to reset the quarterback markets, and Lawrence will not be far behind them. So if I can get those guys, or if I can get a guy I know is a top 2 dynasty asset in Superflex for the next 4 or 5 years in Mahomes and Allen, I'm doing that.
Yep. Yeah, I think that about sums it up.
Yeah, I don't have anything else. I'm off my soapbox.
Off your soapbox now. Deep breaths. Woosah. That'll do it for this one, everybody. Make sure you rate, review us if you're listening in your podcast players. Subscribe if you're on YouTube. We'll see you next week when we're talking more fantasy football. Peace.